In order to avoid the massacre by the German army, the Jewish woman Rachel Stein, played by Carice van Houten, suffered from sensitivity. Fortunately, she was accepted by a kind Dutch family. In order not to attract the attention of outsiders, she, a Jew, even began to believe in Christianity and prayed in a formal manner before every meal. That morning, Rachel went sailing with her boyfriend Ro, played by Hoffman, when an air-to-air battle unexpectedly started. A German fighter plane was chasing and punishing an Allied bomber, and the bomber kept dropping bombs in order to reduce its weight, and a shell landed directly next to them. Fortunately, Rachel and Rob were not hit, but the next second the bomb fell directly on Rachel's hiding place. The grief-stricken Rachel ran quickly towards the burning house, but was stopped by Rob because there was a pair of German soldiers rushing to put out the fire in the distance. As a Jew, Rachel had to turn around and leave in order to avoid being discovered by the German soldiers. That night, she temporarily hid in his neighbor's house, but a strange man suddenly came to his door. The man told that the German army accidentally discovered Rachel's passport and her Jewish identity, which she had painfully hidden while putting out a fire. The neighbor who took Rachel in was also arrested and imprisoned. The German army informed the local Dutch police station of the news, and the man in front of Rachel was a Dutch policeman in the police station. He had a strong heart and came to pass on the news. Just as the man was about to leave, Rachel suddenly rushed up to him. She was begging a kind-hearted man to help her avoid the impending judgment. Looking at Rachel's desperate pleading, the man finally decided to be a good person to the end. He puts Rachel and her neighbor into the prison van. With his police ID and the escort documents forged in advance, the man successfully passed the German checkpoint. This Dutch policeman, who was in charge of the German army in this city, had actually already joined the resistance against the German army. Before the organization, he had used his position to save many Jews. Rachel also saw her father and mother again and younger brother at the assembly point. Then, the Jewish escape team of about 10 people boarded the cargo ship prepared for them by the Dutch police. They planned to cross the German border by water and head to the liberated area occupied by the Allies. Rachel, who had just reunited with her family, was immersed in the joy of happiness. Rachel felt happy there and expected to have a nice life with her family. But she never expected that what she was waiting for was not the beautiful world full of vision in her heart, but the concentrated German army that all Jews were disgusted by. Faced with the sudden light of the searchlight, the Jews instantly woke up from their dream. Facing the Jews, the German army never showed mercy and immediately began shooting fiercely. All the Jews on the ship were killed brutally. Only the sharp-eyed Rachel managed to jump into the water and survived by chance. At this moment, Rachel realized that the Dutch policeman who had helped her get on the boat had already surrendered to the German army and worked with them. They coaxed the Jews onto the boat, saying that they would send them away from the German war zone, but in fact this was a carefully planned massacre. Rachel hid in the cold river, watching the German army searching the bodies for money and luggage on the shore, looking at her father, mother, and brother who had just been killed. The German lieutenant who conducted the bloodbath stood there quietly watching, what made Rachel angry and nauseous. Rachel secretly vowed to do her best to avenge her family. Afterwards, Rachel came to his senses and hid in a charity organization. The kind-hearted charity organization helped him make a new ID. In order to suppress her inner sadness for losing his family, she worked day and night, hoping to use heavy physical labor to make herself forget his sadness. Her brother's face appeared before her eyes again and again. It turns out that this charity is actually a secret base of an underground resistance organization. Rachel, who has a blood feud with her father, decisively chooses to join in order to avenge her family. She becomes an intelligence agent of the underground organization. In the early hours of the morning, they turned on the signal light in an open grassland. Not long after, a transport plane arrived as promised and quickly dropped 3 packages and left. The packages contained weapons, food, and eavesdropping devices. Their next task was to go to the headquarters of the German Army's Party Security Department to install a bug. The next day, Rachel and Hans Ackermans, played by Thom Hoffman, to be a couple and started their first mission in life. They brought 2 boxes of eavesdropping equipment. The train was heading to its destination, but the German troops on the train suddenly began a strict inspection. Everyone's suitcase had to be opened and carefully checked. Hans immediately took out his pistol and prepared to shoot. However, the perceived Rachel thought of another way. She pretended to quarrel with Hans. She then walked out of the wagon with the suitcase. Rachel kept walking forward until she unexpectedly saw a German captain's sharp eyes. Rachel immediately pushed open the cabin door and walked in calmly. When the Captain Ludwig, played by Sebastian Koch, saw the elegant and beautiful Rachel, Ludwig helped her with her suitcases. Little did he know that the box was full of eavesdropping devices, and Rachel was trying hard to strike up a conversation with Ludwig to distract him from the suitcase as much as possible. Rachel saw the two controllers coming and quickly sat down next to Ludwig, trying to create the illusion that she had a very close relationship with the German captain. The inspectors were sent away by Ludwig. Rachel felt elated and happy that this had gone well. Captain Ludwig was deeply attracted to the beautiful and elegant Rachel. After getting off the train, Ludwig offered to take Rachel away, but Rachel did not respond. Rachel thanked Ludwig and flattered the train station with Hans. Just a few days after the operation began, the underground organization's transport truck quickly turned to avoid a boy who suddenly rushed out, and the truck crashed. The fruits and food on the truck were instantly scattered all over the ground, and the children immediately began to loot. The resistance organization were stuck in the cab and could not break free. The 3 members of the resistance organization were arrested by the police, who happened to be in the area and found the weapons. The head of the resistance group, Gerben Kuipers, played by Derek de Lint, saw that his son and the 2 others were being abused by the plot and were taken away. Gerben could no longer bear it, so he picked up his weapon and rushed out to try to rescue them. Fortunately, his companions fought desperately to block them, and he gradually calmed down and regained his rationality. Then he immediately arranged for his men to transfer weapons, ammunition, and other equipment to the backup hiding point, and notified all personnel to disperse and hide immediately. Gerben hoped that Rachel would contact Captain Ludwig, who was the captain of the local SS security department. They hoped that Rachel could do everything possible to use Ludwig to rescue the arrested persons. Rachel was silent for a few seconds and then agreed resolutely to Gerben's request. That afternoon, Rachel walked into the gate of the party's guard alone. Rachel never thought that she, a sensitive Jew, could pass by so many German soldiers without danger. The captain's face was filled with unconcealable joy to see Rachel again. Rachel had not come empty-handed and gave him a lot of rare and hard-to-collect stamps. The captain, who loved stamps, couldn't let go of the stamps when he saw them. The stamps were personally sent by his beloved Rachel, which Ludwig even more excited. He was in turmoil, but he seized the opportunity and decisively invited Rachel to a party. Rachel was originally on a special rescue mission, so how could she refuse Ludwig's request? Before the party started, the German commander gave a passionate speech, and then everyone sang war songs with great ambition. Rachel, who didn't know how to sing the German war song at all, had to open her mouth and sing along. However, she didn't expect that she would accidentally meet the German officer who massacred her entire family. The look in his eyes that made all Jews fear had appeared in Rachel's mind more than once. The scene of her mother and brother being massacred instantly swept through Rachel's mind. She was filled with grief, hatred, and pain. In order not to attract other people's attention, she quickly turned around and rushed to the bathroom. The captain, who admired her closely, hurried over to ask about his concern. Rachel, who has put her mind at ease, walks into the party again. She was so happy that she even sang a song with her enemy under the recommendation of her superior. Even though she was extremely reluctant, she could only pretend to be confident. Rachel sang passionately, and her passionate and gentle voice won the approval of everyone, and it deeply touched the heart of the superior. In order to make use of the task as soon as possible and to free her companions before completing the mission, Rachel seized the opportunity and took the initiative to go home with her superior, using her body in exchange for her superior's trust. Rachel also discovered that the captain had been married and had 2 children, but they were all killed in a British bombing. Looking at the German captain who had lost all his family members, Rachel fell into deep thought. because her whole family was also massacred and she was left alone. At this moment, Rachel stopped feeling hatred and wanted to live in peace. At this moment, there is no more war, no more politics, no more racial identity, and there are only two lonely souls relying on each other for comfort. With the help of his superiors, Rachel managed to get a job in the German SS Reichswehr. Not only did she try to rescue her captured companions, but she even saw the companions she wanted to rescue with her own eyes while copying documents. Seeing that the companions had been tortured by the German army, Rachel was helpless. She could only pretend not to know him, but her heart was already in turmoil. Rachel. At this time, members of the resistance organization found Rachel and hoped that Rachel will install a bug in their office. After receiving the task, Rachel immediately takes the bug and sneaks into the German office while everyone is preparing for the birthday celebration for the German leader. She quickly takes down the portrait on the wall, pries open the cardboard behind it, and then quickly takes out the bug from her stockings. But when she was carefully and nervously installing the bug, the German captain suddenly returned. Fortunately, she was quick to install the bug before the German captain came in. The German captain, who was deeply in love with the woman, did not notice any clues at all. Then, the woman lied that she had something to do at home and quickly left the scene. She quickly came to the secret gathering place of the resistance organization to check the installation effect. She also unexpectedly heard a familiar voice. It was the voice of the Dutch policeman who had trapped Rachel and her family. She heard that the policeman and the German lieutenant were making new plans to round up Jews. Rachel strongly urged the members of the organization to find a way to prevent the next massacre. She didn't want to see her Jewish compatriots being slaughtered again. However, the leader of the organization said that their first task was to gather intelligence for the Allied forces' upcoming attack and provide enough useful information. What they should have done was not to risk exposing the identity of their organization to rescue 20 or 30 Jews. Rachel, a Jew, was filled with grief and indignation after hearing the leader's words. She even quarreled with the leader directly, then turned away angrily, but was determined to get back at policemen. Hans decided to help Rachel fulfill her wish. In order not to expose the organization, they planned to create the illusion that the Dutch policeman was missing. They waited for the Dutch policeman to appear at the entrance of the German SS security department, and then followed closely, preparing secret medicine behind them to take action at any time. The other three men were spent pretending that they are passengers who had just gotten off a taxi happened to stop in front of the Dutch police, and then taking the opportunity to act quickly. They thought the policeman had been knocked unconscious by the medicine, but he actually held his breath and pretended to be knocked unconscious, successfully deceiving everyone. While they were not alert, he broke free and ran away. A fierce gun battle broke out between the two sides. Fortunately, several people chased him relentlessly and finally succeeded in shooting and killing the Dutch policeman who designed the massacre trap. However, their actions angered the leader of the organization, because the fierce gun battle and the Dutch policeman who was beaten into a sticky state were likely to expose the organization. More importantly, they learned of the German anger through the bugs they had installed in the German office that they are preparing to execute 40 counter-revolutionaries in prison. In order to make up for the consequences of their assassination of the Dutch police, they decided to find a way to risk their lives to rescue the 40 imprisoned counter-revolutionaries. Several of them changed into German military uniforms, while others pretended to be prisoners. Then, with the passes that Rachel stole from the security department, they successfully passed the German inspection. Then they crawled into the sewer from an empty corner and burned through the iron doors and went straight into the prison. They quickly opened the prison and began rescuing the arrested persons. But no one expected that a large number of German soldiers suddenly rushed out of the empty cells. It was obvious that this was a place where they were waiting for an opportunity. They shot everyone who was downstairs. Ultimately, the resistance organization failed to rescue the arrested persons, but they also lost even more resistance fighters. Only the team leader Hans and the truck driver who was waiting outside managed to escape. Upon learning that the rescue operation had failed, the resistance organization was filled with grief and anger. the lieutenant who designed the trap to massacre the Jews had found out that Rachel was a Jewish female spy. But the lieutenant did not reveal this. His purpose was to use Rachel to pass false information and thus create this operation to take advantage of the situation. At the same time, the fat lieutenant deliberately framed Rachel. But the lieutenant did not reveal this. His purpose was to use Rachel to pass false information and thus create this operation to take advantage of the situation. At the same time, the fat lieutenant deliberately framed Rachel, so that the resistance organization would think that it was Rachel who had made a mistake. Now that the lieutenant had finished his game, he took out the listening device that Rachel had secretly installed before. Only then did Rachel realize that she had been fooled, but she no longer had the right to speak. The lieutenant continued to say things that caused the resistance organization to misunderstand Rachel. The leader of the resistance organization immediately ordered Rachel to be removed from the organization and vowed to kill Rachel to avenge the death of his companion. Rachel was immediately imprisoned and later Ludwig was too. Arrested and imprisoned because of his close relationship with Rachel. Fortunately, he had followers in prison, who helped Ludwig and Rachel escape. The two of them left the prison and he hid the two in the back seat of the car, covered them with a blanket, and left. The captain was told everything truthfully, but he did not mean to blame Rachel at all, because the captain had truly fallen in love with Rachel a long time ago, and for Rachel, he was willing to give up everything. The two agreed to abandon everything and prepare to live together in anonymity. It seemed like a fairy-like life, but fate was not going to let them go. The day after they escaped, the German army announced its surrender, and World War II officially ended. At the same time, operations to purge caterers were launched across the country. Those women who had served the German army were also arrested and had their beautiful hair cut off in public, and were subjected to insults and ridicule from the people. Ludwig, who had intended to hide his identity, went out, but was unexpectedly recognized by the former members of the resistance organization. Although he did not try to escape, he was eventually arrested on the spot. Ludwig secretly turned his head to look at Rachel standing by the window as a final farewell. When the members noticed them, they immediately ran towards Rachel and was captured. She was imprisoned with women who had served the German army and traitors who obeyed the German army's command. She was beaten and humiliated every day, and even stripped her naked and bathed in urine. Fortunately, the fat lieutenant who tried to escape and avoid trial was arrested. In order to prove that he had a very good attitude to confess his guilt, the fat lieutenant told everything, including framing Rachel for betraying the resistance organization. Rachel was taken out of the women's prison by Hans. Only then was Rachel accepted into the organization again and turned into a hero loved by. Rachel was then also told that Ludwig, whom she had been thinking about all the time, had been executed a few days ago. Learning the news of Ludwig's death, Rachel, who had never shed a tear despite being tortured and beaten, burst into tears instantly.